Hey there, it's Mr. K, and welcome to what is the last lecture for Unit 1, at least how my class is set up and how it's presented to you in CollegeBoard. You know, there's daily videos. This is the last video for Unit 1. So I believe 7 videos total. No, 8. So this is the last one. All right, so if you've been following along, you've made it through the first of 9 units in the course. So well done. So this lesson is all about developing paragraphs comprised of a claim and supporting evidence. Specifically in this video, what we're going to do is learn about effectively embedding evidence to support a claim. So when you come to that part in your argument or in your paper where it's time to provide evidence, there's a couple ways to do that, and a couple ways to do that most effectively. So that's what we're gonna work on. So the goals are: 1, understand how to select and use evidence, and then number 2, embed evidence into your own writing. Once you can do that, then, like I said, you have finished the first unit. You are on your way to succeeding in AP Lang and beyond. Okay, so just some quick review. This is that visual of the most basic elements of an argument, where we have our thesis at the top, right? That is the main idea, the conclusion, or the thesis. I call it thesis most often. That is the main argument of your paper. It is supported by our reasons, and those reasons are supported by evidence. All right. So now we are here, kind of at the bottom. And again, each of these boxes is a body paragraph. That's typically that's the easiest way to think about this kind of visually, is that you have body paragraph 1, 2, 3, etc. And that holds up your main point. All right. So today the focus is really in these evidence pieces. All right. So we looked at this last time. Again, paragraph formats. There's that part of me as a teacher who believes that formats are really helpful to start, to get ideas in your head, to make sure that you've checked the boxes, you've hit all the pieces of an argument, or rhetorical analysis, or synthesis, or whatever essay you're doing in AP Lang. There's also that part of me, just the writer part of me, and the language enthusiast part of me that is like, don't stick to formats. It can be, your writing will turn formulaic, and we will get to that point in the course where you are taking these ideas and making them your own. But just, if you're the type of student, type of writer, like I once was, where I needed, okay, just tell me what to do though. These are formats. The basic format is basically you start your paragraph with a claim, right? What is this paragraph about? What is the main point that is being argued? Then you give evidence, and then you explain the evidence in 2 or more sentences, explaining how the evidence supports the claim. Actually explain it in your words, and then you connect it back to the thesis. What does this mean in relation to the thesis? Right? And, there are different methods, the axis method, the peel method. It's the same pieces, guys. So if you want to take a screenshot of that, write that down. If that helps you, pause the video and write it down. Whichever one, maybe one of them speaks more clearly to you, take it. That's great. But no matter the format that you choose, we today are talking about the evidence, right? Or the example, or here, the evidence. All right, that's what we're trying to do. Okay, there are 3 ways to select and embed evidence in your paper. All right. The most common methods to incorporate others' writing into an argument are, first, a quotation, a word or sentence or sentences taken word for word from a source and enclosed in quotation marks. Okay. You probably know what a quote is by now. right? That is taking word for word what an author says. If it's rhetorical analysis, and I'm going to show you an example here in a couple moments, but an example, a speech given by President Obama at the passing of Rosa Parks, right? Okay, so if you take his words word for word and use them in your own analysis of his speech, that's a quotation, right? We know that. Okay. A paraphrase. This is when you rephrase in your own words and your own sentence structure a portion of a source that's about the same length as the original, a sentence or sentences that you're paraphrasing. So if you're paraphrasing a sentence, it's usually a sentence. If you're paraphrasing 3 sentences, it's usually about 3 sentences. But what you're doing is changing the wording and the sentence structure, things as minute as, the subject in the original sentence came before the verb and the object. And this one, I'm actually going to flip it, so that can be rephrasing method, and changing the wording. All right. So instead of saying that the author uses a very tense and or intense tone, you might say combative tone, something like that, right? Changing the wording. Okay. Then there's a summary. This is shorter than the original source, and it presents the central idea in your own words. So that might be taking a line, a paragraph, a whole text, and really summarizing it down to a sentence or two, or taken all together, what is this text saying from start to finish? And you might sum that up in a sentence, right? It's getting to the central idea, the essence of it. The thing is, all 3 of these are really necessary. And the best thing to do is in your essay, don't rely on just quote or paraphrase or summary. Mix them, right? Use variation. Keep your reader interested. Like, ooh, dang, that sounds different than the last paragraph. That's awesome. You want to keep it fresh. So writers can use signal words when presenting evidence, such as, let's say, Obama. President Obama argues or asserts or contends, emphasizes, explains, observes, suggests, writes, right? Remember, we talked about that in the past lecture, one of the past lectures, but I believe it was the last one. You don't just drop a sentence in your essay like, whoop, word for word. You at the very least, you need to say, President Obama writes, quote, right? That's embedding. You have to do that, right? So those are the 3 methods that we're gonna look at, and I'm gonna show you examples of and things like that. Okay. So a couple reminders. The context or the meaning of the quote or the evidence should still have the same meaning. If you're paraphrasing or paraphrasing or summarizing, it still has the same idea. The meaning doesn't change. If Obama is praising Rosa Parks, if Obama is emphasizing her strength or her forward thinking, right? That can't change. Just because you're paraphrasing and changing the wording, you don't change the meaning, right? And you want to make sure that enough of the quote or evidence is included to ensure clarity, right? Now, this is not one of those things where the more the merrier, the more evidence I use, the better. Not necessarily. In fact, some of the best evidence, I think, is when a writer, one of my students, takes a paragraph and breaks it into pieces and says something like Obama writes, quote, right? It then goes on to argue that quote, and almost like a stained glass window, the broken pieces, but when put together is this beautiful picture, right? So You need to use a sufficient amount of evidence, but it's not like in my essay, I'm going to use 4 sentences of evidence every single time I do evidence. Well, that's going to be overkill. That's going to show that you know how to copy text, not that you know how to write about it, right? So you want to make sure that enough of it is used to ensure clarity, all right? So I want you to practice here in a second. Don't do it quite yet. Select a paragraph of text and create examples of how you would embed evidence into your own writing. And so on a Google Doc or paper, whatever you're doing, we'll do it like this. You have a paraphrase, a summary, a quotation, and what your example is on the right. But real quick, I want to just give you a couple transition words that are helpful. Again, you might want to take a screenshot or copy these down. But these are words that help the essay flow from point to point, evidence 1 to 2, claim to evidence to commentary, then to the next point. It keeps it flowing, connects the ideas within paragraphs. All right. So commonly used transitions such as, I'll go quickly, after, to demonstrate, since, another, next, consequently, therefore, furthermore, likewise, additionally, indeed, unlike, in fact, clearly, except for, on the other hand, nonetheless, alternatively, conversely, besides, additionally, however. I stop on however real quick. When I write a paper, especially when I was in college, I had to Control F, find the word however in my paper because I used it like 76 times. And I was like, whoa, I have to change this up. All right, so I rely pretty heavily on however. Accordingly, although, aside from, while. Now, notice some of these would be used in a similar idea, right? You're saying something is true. Consequently, this is true. Because of this, right? But some of them, alternatively, Obama says this. Alternatively, though, he says this. It shows tension or disagreement or something, right? So those are commonly used transition words that you want to have those in your back pocket. You want to have those ready to go. So again, maybe take a screenshot or write them down and get those in your brain. All right. Now, I want to show you some practice. So let me move my face here. I'm going to go on the top right. Okay, so here is in the top box, this is a prompt, a rhetorical analysis prompt from, I think it was 2021. And it says this. On February 27th, 2013, while in office, former President Barack Obama delivered the following address dedicating the Rosa Parks statue in the National Statuary Hall of the United States Capitol building. Rosa Parks was an African-American civil rights activist who was arrested in 1955 for refusing to give up her seat on a segregated bus in Montgomery, Alabama. Read the passage carefully. Write an essay that analyzes the rhetorical choices Obama makes to convey his message. I realized earlier in the lecture I said a eulogy. Sorry. I think one of the speeches I usually teach with my students, I think Oprah maybe gives a eulogy at Rosa Parks. So forgive me, I got them mixed up. But there's this statue of Rosa Parks that's being unveiled, and President Obama was still in office at the time, and he was giving this address to dedicate this to her, right? Then I gave you just the first part of the speech over here. This is not the whole thing. Let me read this, and then what I want you to do is use this to come up with evidence. All right. So let me read this. This is what Obama said. He said, Rosa Parks held no elected office. She possessed no fortune, lived her life far from the formal seats of power, and yet today she takes her rightful place among those who've shaped this nation's course. I thank all those persons, in particular the members of the Congressional Black Caucus, both past and present, for making this moment possible. A childhood friend once said about Mrs. Parks, quote, nobody ever bossed Rosa around and got away with it. That's what an Alabama driver learned on December 1st, 1955. 12 years earlier, he had kicked Mrs. Parks off his bus simply because she entered through the front door when the back door was too crowded. He grabbed her sleeve and he pushed her off the bus. It made her mad enough, she would recall. that she avoided riding his bus for a while. And when they met again that winter evening in 1955, Rosa Parks would not be pushed. When the driver got up from his seat to insist that she give up hers, she would not be pushed. When he threatened to have her arrested, she simply replied, "You may do that." And he did. So there's some evidence, or that's some text for you. What I should have done is given you the claim over here, and I'm sorry about that. Here's what I want you to do. In a second, I want you to pause the video, and I want you to come up with an example of evidence in quotation form, in paraphrase form, and in summary form about this claim. The claim, I should have revealed it to you here, is I said, Obama's language emphasizes Ms. Parks' strength in the face of inequality. Okay, let me say it one more time. So where in that text do you see Obama's language emphasizing Rosa Parks' strength in the face of inequality or adversity? That was the claim that we're trying to get to. All right, so you don't need to come up with that. What I want you to do is come up with a quote, a paraphrase, and a summary that speaks to that claim. All right, so go ahead and hit pause, see what you can come up with, and then I'll go over what I came up with. All right, go for it. Okay, sorry again for not giving you the claim, but here's the idea. If we were writing this essay, our claim is that President Obama's rhetorical choices emphasize Parks' strength in the face of inequality. Okay, pretty standard claim, nothing too crazy there. What we want to do, though, is come up with a piece of quoted evidence, a paraphrased evidence, and a summarized evidence. So let me read those. The quotation, I said, President Obama repeatedly says Parks, quote, would not be pushed. That's it. Then from there, of course, you would go on and explain that evidence and connect it back to the thesis, right? But that's it. That's a quoted piece of evidence. Notice I didn't just take a sentence and drop it. I introduced it by saying President Obama repeatedly says Parks, quote, right? Here's a paraphrase of the same idea. On several occasions, President Obama says that Parks would not back down in the face of unfair treatment. Notice, I'm saying the same thing. Parks would not be pushed. She wouldn't back down. Same idea, right? And I changed the structure a little bit. Instead of just jumping into President Obama says that Parks, right, which I did here, I said on several occasions. Because over here in the text, would not be pushed, would not be pushed. There's two of them, right? So I could have said on two occasions or on, either way. But I just put that little positive phrase at the beginning. On several occasions, President Obama says, to change it up, change up the sentence structure. And again, instead of saying, President Obama says that Parks would not be pushed, because then I'd have to quote it, I said she would not back down in the face of unfair treatment. Same idea, same thing, right? Then a summary is more the main idea of that passage as a whole. So I said this, President Obama discusses several parts of Parks' character, including her steady resistance to inequality, right? You get more of a general summarized idea, but that still speaks to this quote, Parks would not be pushed. Parks would not be pushed, right? There's a quoted evidence, a paraphrased evidence, and a summarized evidence. And again, in your paper, you want to mix them up, right? A quote, a paraphrase, quote, summary, paraphrase, summary, quote. You use as many different types as you can. So what you do when you're including evidence in your essays, you ask yourself a couple questions. One, did I select evidence efficiently? Right? Did I choose the best evidence available to me in that text? Ask yourself that. And if not, kill the sentence. I know you wrote the sentence and it's your little darling, I birthed this sentence. Nah, sorry, get rid of it. If there's something better that you found as you were usually what happens with a student, they continue to write and they realize, ooh, I just thought of something that's better than what I said earlier. If you have time, kill it, right? And go back. Is my evidence embedded effectively? Again, did I introduce it in my own wording? Have I changed up structure, right? All of those kinds of things. And does my evidence actually support the claim? Like, if it doesn't, if your evidence actually shows that Rosa Parks was, well, this doesn't exist in the text, but if you're making the argument that Rosa Parks was weak in the face of adversity, well, that is not supported by the text, right? Or if your evidence is about something else, that of something else about Rosa Parks' character and really has nothing to do with her, steady, kind of resistance to inequality, then the evidence isn't doing its job, right? The evidence supports the reason, which supports the thesis, right? Isaac Asimov, amazing sci-fi author. He says this: "I'll believe anything, no matter how wild and ridiculous, if there's evidence for it. The wilder and more ridiculous something is, however, the firmer and more solid the evidence will have to be." Right? So if you're making an argument in your paper, not if, when you are making an argument in your paper, you have to back it up. It is where essays live or die. If your thesis is defensible and substantial, and if there's evidence to support it, right? That's where essays live or die, right? So if there's evidence for it, you're going to be you're on your way to being more persuasive. So the goals for today were twofold: understand how to select and use evidence, and start to embed evidence into your own writing. I hope this was helpful for you. I hope these videos helped you, especially through the first unit. Please feel free to send me questions via email on the YouTube channel if that helps you. And if you're one of my students, just email me or talk to me in class. All right, my friends, I'll see you next time.